Through the calendars, date stelae, monumental inscriptions, regnal lists, annals, and timekeeping systems from the ancient world all the way to today, there is a hidden calendar embedded into the structure of reality. Unbroken, perfect, found in the writings of our predecessors, mentioned by writers thousands of years ago. Every 138 years it brings changes to our world, edits, resets, and then disguises these changes under the guise of natural disasters. The Phoenix phenomenon causes mud floods, resets, mass vanishings, edits of history altering the trajectory of social and political events, introduces new materials, new translations to older text, strange phenomena. A small window of time in the month of May every 138 years when the veil between our world and somewhere else is rent open and there is an exchange of materials. At Archaics.com and the Archaics YouTube channel, you will find innumerous examples and data sets showing you that this strange overseer protocol has totally forged the unfolding of historical events and will return in May of 2040. Our world is not what you think. Yeah, man, our world is not what you think. Man, I got so many amazing videos coming out in the next 2.5, 3 weeks. You guys are going to be singing the song. How'd she do it? A shore is a day, not a year. How would you do it? Our world is not what you think. I need that girl to do another song. Man, you have no idea. Hey, Victoria, I saw your post on X. Thanks for blowing me up. Letting everybody know. Oh, I'm telling you now, I went deep on Tartaria. You're not going to believe what I found. Couldn't believe it my damn self. It's crazy. That video is already uploaded. It's already been recorded. The research is done. It's already uploaded. It's put on YouTube, and I schedule it. As a matter of fact, you guys can't even see it, but I've already got 4 videos uploaded to YouTube, and they're scheduled. And this is how I'm doing Archaics 3.0. I've got a lot of versatility with my podcast, with my guests, but I've got a strict schedule I'm going by on these data dumps, on these drops. So the next 2 Nemesis X videos are probably also going to be uploads. This is the introduction. We're going to do the first one live. You guys know, since the inception of my channel, I've given you whole chunks of video here, a trilogy of videos here. Then 17, 18, 19, 28, 37 videos may go by, and then I'll drop a bomb on the Nemesis X Object and give you a whole new data set from a different perspective. And this is the way it's been with the Phoenix phenomenon as well. But now, this video begins tying all the Nemesis X threads together in one linear timeline. It's probably going to be three long videos. This is just the first one. This video covers almost 30 posts on Twitter, because that's what I've been doing with my research. I have been putting them together because of the abbreviated format that Twitter requires you to fit your compositions in. It actually helps me to remove the dross, to get extraneous material out of the way, and I'm able to put in a lot of data in a condensed format. So I kind of prefer it that way. And then I can bookmark whole sections, whole data sets can be bookmarked. I like this system on Twitter. That's what I've been doing. I have several bookmarks now for Phoenix phenomenon, for the Turin Shroud, for the forgeries of Christianity, for the Old Testament not being new. I'm building these, and I've already determined that I'm probably going to write a book based off each bookmark, since it's already a complete data set with sources. So that's what I'm doing. That's the direction I'm heading. Man, coffee's so real. I have many other announcements, but we can do that some other time. I got too much going on. You guys know I'll probably make some announcements tomorrow with Waters Above and Logan. Logan, Decode Your Reality. Jordan of Waters Above Crypto. We're gonna chat about state this crazy circus world. It's a clown world. We'll be chatting about that. I'm also going to show off Ophis because Jordan showed me the lunar correspondences with the market fluctuations, and I had never even considered that. And because the moon is a part of the computations of the sky, it is actually a part of the Shar dating system. I was kind of taken aback that I had never taken that in consideration. So we had our coder Doug go ahead and put those moon phases in the Ophis algorithm. I'm going to show it off tomorrow. It's going to blow your mind. It's amazing. It's amazing. So glad I saw that. All right. So you guys know that we got a new Aaron's Choice coffee coming out. Aaron's Choice coffee. Now, man, they're too far for me to reach. You're way over there. I've already showed the 2 bags before, but I got a lot more. I got a box in from the guys that are doing the Archaics coffee. It's amazing. The names, the flavors, all the different types of coffee we're about to start producing right here on Archaics. Listen, Aaron's Choice coffee for those who want to wake up. Yeah, man. I came up with the name, but I got a friend. I got a girlfriend at Virginia Beach. Y'all all know who she is. She came up with for those who want to wake up. But she gets pissed at me every time I name drop. And every time I try to give her credit where credit is due. So I'm not gonna name her. But she's at Virginia Beach. So yeah, that's right. All kind of we got guys that they're not outsourcing. These guys actually make coffee. They grind it. They know all the little recipes. They know, man. Yeah, they prove their case to us. It all started when I was right here in this studio, and I dropped it. That you guys know I don't have commercials on my videos. I can't stop YouTube from putting commercials at the beginning of them, but I don't allow current commercials in the middle of my videos. I got over 800 videos, and YouTube has only jacked 3 of my videos for copyright infringements. And when there's a copyright infringement, that's when YouTube just spams your whole video. Like my Matrix video, I reposted it on Archaics TV because YouTube ruined it. I don't know anybody who can suffer through all that. But yeah, every 3 minutes, there's three or four commercials, man. So I left it on YouTube for anybody who wants to, endure that pain. But on Archaics TV, you can watch all 3 or 4 of my videos that YouTube butchered with commercials. You can watch them commercial free on Archaics TV. So the new, we got all the paperwork in this morning for the 5,200. Everything lease approved. We got building plans approved. You guys know Big John and I went with a measuring tape, a pen, and graph paper, and because I had an empty warehouse, and their construction crew is starting to get on it in the next week or so. But they're building it to my specs because I chose all the closets, bathrooms, rooms, where everything needs to be. Studio. Yeah, this is for Archaics and Ophis headquarters. We're gonna bring everything together. We got amazing plans, guys. We don't have enough. I don't want to say we don't have enough people, because then I'm gonna get deluged with a whole bunch of people wanting to come work. And the problem is this is a startup. It's still a startup. Just because I'm making power moves and big moves doesn't mean I have a huge budget. It doesn't. You guys understand, I have 0 sponsors. I have no ads. So I don't have the revenue a lot of these big channels do, and I've never needed it. You guys have watched me grow from a wooden shack and a backpack on a motorcycle all the way to where I am today. This is my 3rd studio right here. And I haven't even been in this studio 2 months, and now I have a 5,200 square foot studio being built right now. We're just waiting for Montgomery County to approve the architectural schematics. They have to juggle some things because of building compliance, but it doesn't matter. We'll still be operational by mid-December, and that's when I'm going to roll out with a whole new line, because Big John and I have been working on it off and on. You guys know the tarot decks. Well, we found a company that's going to make archaics decks. Well, we're going to have decks that are not tarot cards, but these decks have awesome pictures. One deck will be like Phoenix Phenomenon, then Advanced Phoenix Phenomenon. When you flip over the card, it'll have an image or chart, or it'll have some amazing facts. But we're going to put 100% of all the Phoenix data on these decks. We're going to do the Nemesis X, the Dark Satellite, the Mayan Long Count. We're going to do pre-flood world decks. We're going to do decks on old Bronze Age, from 2239 BC to the Great Mediterranean Dark Age of 1135 BC to 800 BC. We're going to have decks of cards for different periods. We'll have apocalypse decks, and these will be like almost like trivia decks. They'll be games. They're actually going to be games, but they're going to educate people. It's going to make learning fun, because the information you get in archaics isn't like anywhere else. You can't, if it was, you wouldn't be here. And everything's source backed, everything verifiable by calculator. And this is what we're doing. We're really trying to reach a younger audience, because it's the younger audience that really matters. They're the ones that are going to have all the strength in the 2 decades to come, when strength is going to be needed the most. That's what we're going to be relying on. I'm 51 right now, but everything that I've showed since 2004 that's unfolding in the world today is slated for 2040 through 2046. And you know what? I'll be 67 to 73 years old during those years. So we need to educate the younger generation. We need them to understand exactly where we came from and where we're going. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is show them the math and show them the source materials and show them, look, all this has happened before. It's just the rulers that be don't want us to know about it. So let's get into the Nemesis X. Let's get into these posts so you guys can see that we have a tremendous amount of data about the ancient world. And we have a tremendous amount of morons who think they're teachers, and they're absolutely unqualified to be in that position. If our modern day infrastructure, our scholastic infrastructure was truly working, you wouldn't need Jason of Archaics to educate you on these things. You would already know them, but you don't. So let's get into it, and screw scholastics and everybody who claims to be a professor, because I'm not impressed. All right. Oh, and those who claim to be professors who aren't professors. We got those on YouTube too. All right. Chat's going good. 1,200 people in here. I may do all 3 of these live. And that depends on you guys, what y'all think about it. But this is the first one. For those of you who have been on Twitter, oh, I do have that one announcement. December 7th, Houston. We're selling tickets daily. The tickets are selling daily, and people are contacting the Archaics team behind the scenes as well, because they're having trouble with the Meetup app. So we do have a list that's growing on the side of people who have paid by other means. So when you look on the Meetup app, that's not an accurate reflection of how many tickets sold. And we're only selling 175 tickets. So, you got to get in where you fit in. I'd hate to look out the windows and see a crowd of people out there in the parking lot because they can't come in the doors. Because I'm telling you, our steward is not. We've already been in this room 3 times in the Maple Room. The Maple Room is very strict about attendance. There's going to be somebody from the building at the venue, so we just can't get around that. So the entire 8-hour presentation, I believe Barry's going to be there. I don't know if Doug will be back in the States. This is the OFIS team. There's only 3 of us. We do outsource with Big John sometimes with help, but I do believe Barry Featherstone's going to be at the Houston meetup. I'm not quite sure. I got to find out what his plans are. But you'll have me there. I'm not just going to give a presentation. I'm actually going to be doing right there in real-time applications. You give me your information right there on the wall. I'm going to run it through Opus. You're going to see what I see. I'm going to show you the output, and I'm going to tell you the exact days in the future when nature is moving with you. When the thousands of days in the future are removed that are not mathematically or geometrically connected in any way in all the 14 physics constants that are used in the Opus algorithm, and they are unconnected in any way to the input that you put in the system, what is left are the days in the future that have the same arithmetic, the same mathematical coding of the days you input. It's an amazing system. It's user dependent, so you got to know what you're putting into it. Can't put days that aren't relative to each other. They got to be relative. But we'll get all that. We'll explain all that later. Golf AI, yeah, we can see you. I'm not saying anybody wants to talk to you if nobody's commenting to you, but I can definitely see your comment. You're not invisible. All right, let me get this intro out of here. Move from studio. Let me go find. I'm going to log on to Twitter now. Let's see here. I'm going to share. Let me share my screen so I can. Those of you who are not on my Twitter, you're missing out. I post data on there all the time. Curios, interesting things, news reports. So let me share my screen. Entire screen. All right. Man, yeah, it's definitely a simulation. Look at all that. That's way back there. Can't tell me that's not a simulation. It's crazy. All right. See what's going on here. Oh, look at that. First person that pops up on my Twitter. Robert Siever's asking us to take a pill. Red pill or blue pill? Carpet bombing the internet with anthropology red pill since 1998. Well, you're certainly doing it now. I don't know if you've been doing it since 1999. Like everybody else, Robert Siever's grown. I've got no issues with him. I am very familiar about his early years were very different than his years today. And the things that he was posting in 2004, 2005, and 2006 were very different than what he posts today. But that's what it's all about. My stuff is matured as well. So I got nothing bad to say. But I'm not going to take either pill. Thank you, Robert. I'm going to move on to Archaics. That was my last post today. Tartaria, the Phoenix Connection. Listen, guys, you think you know everything about Tartaria? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You don't. You don't. I've watched many Tartaria videos. I've always been looking for substance. I'm looking for something that I can detach a bibliography to. I'm looking for source materials. I'm looking for something I can reference. I can't. It's so hard when it comes to the Tartaria stuff. So I acquired a lot of information from a lot of different sources, and then something fell into my lap. Something profound fell into my lap. So I'm going through the CIA report on how the Bolsheviks were erasing Russian history, and their focus was Tartaria. So this got my attention. So who were the Tartarians to the Bolsheviks, and why should they care? That opened up a rabbit hole. That right there. It's all in this video. I'm not even telling you when it's going to drop. It's scheduled to drop. I'm not even going to announcement. You're just going to wake up one morning and say, "Oh, damn, look, Archaics dropped a video," and it's going to be that one. Amazing. It's amazing. Jordan Crowder's on tomorrow. No, Sunday. I'll have Jordan Crowder on Sunday. That's him right there. I just posted the, for those of you who don't know, the Phalorn Saga is my epic fantasy. I kind of encoded a lot into it about the Phoenix phenomenon with the return of the broken moon. This is tomorrow. Decoding the waters above Archaics, round 2. This is tomorrow. Oh, by the way, here's your Archaic certificate of authenticity. This is for you guys who were waiting on your illustrations. All 105 illustrations have sold. There are no more to sell. You will be getting these certificates with them depending on, there's two different certificates depending upon how many illustrations you bought. This is a single. This is a certificate for a single one. Also, we'll be taking care of this. There's a few of you who ordered our last coins. So, and I got to send a coin to a guy who we did a trade-off at Virginia Beach. You guys have not been forgotten. We've just been overwhelmed. And I'm sorry for that. Let's move over here to bookmarks. Look at that. Shroud of Turin, New Testament Untrue, Anunnaki Nerd Chronology, Phoenix Phenomenon, and now Nemesis X. This is just the first Nemesis bookmark. And I largely got them in order. Look at that. Imagine that. How'd that happen? Let me check my... Hey, Jahar Lee. Let me check my chat real quick before I get started. Did hear a rumor. I did hear a rumor that somebody can confirm that or not. Did my lunch break? Has my lunch break joined the wellness network? Wow. I'm not gonna talk about it right here. Anybody who wants to know about the wellness network and the new narrative network and how they're hijacking the stories, and yeah, man. Yeah, you need to look up Polly. Polly's gonna tell you the truth. That's her forte. She's researching all that. I was kind of disappointed when I heard that. If it's true, it may not be true, but somebody had done a post talking about my lunch break is now part of the wellness wellness network. It's sad. All right, look at that. All right, before we begin, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. So I'm going to check my chat to make sure you guys can see this. You can see this clear. Get back in my chat real quick. Did y'all see that real clear? I'll go back to that format. Law Docs, I got it. I got a whole lot of emails. I just haven't really been had time to get to them. Yes, you saw it clear. Good. Thank you. Let's get to it then. That Freudian slip may have been accurate. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. I'm full of those. Of course, Graham Hancock's been watching. Hell yeah. Ursa Minor says, Graham Hancock, I swear, has been watching your channel and stealing your ideas. Graham Hancock's not the only one. I get emails on a daily basis of people educating me, telling me, hey, click onto this link and listen to this guy at minute such and such. This came straight out of your mouth on Archaics. Dude, you guys have no idea how many people are doing this and not mentioning me and not giving me credit. But that's okay. This is the highest form of praise. It's okay. You know what? It took me 2 years just to get everybody to stop attacking me. Now I got people's attention. I'm cool. Let them copy. Let them emulate. Not even worried about it. Not even worried about it. Graham Hancock better be copying me and listening to me, because Keanu Reeves ain't gonna teach him anything. I don't know why I got Keanu Reeves as a co-host. Then again, they're both just actors. All right. Since y'all said that was the correct format, I'm getting to it. Nemesis X Chronology, number 1, the year 3499 BC. You guys have heard it many times, many times. It is 1,260 years before the flood. The Nemesis X object appears for the first time in recorded human history. It spends 60 years in close proximity to Earth. We call this perihelion. The object is not a planet. It's not an exoworld. It is a superconstruction. Nemesis X object maintains characteristics of being a reset weapon, just like the Phoenix. But it's not the Phoenix, as we'll see. It does share mathematical relationships with the Phoenix, but they have totally different periodicities. Its total period is 792 years, not 36 centuries, not 3,600 years, like Zechariah Sitchin says, because he borrowed from a mistake made by a Greek historian named Berosus, made 1,000 years after the shar was no longer used as a unit of measurement. That's crazy. Why would you rely on Berosus as an authority when he's so clearly in error? Even the scholars in the Alexandrian library corrected Berosus in his day, but you still got people like Zechariah Sitchin and Billy Carson that are going with the mistake. So 792 years is the period of the Nemesis X object. This is 60 years perihelion, meaning it hangs in the sky for 60 years. And then 732 years, we can call that aphelion, meaning it's so far away we can't see it. 732 years, it disappears from the human family. It disappears from the sky, and we are no longer under its influence, which begs the question, Jason, what happens during the 60 years that we're under its influence? That's a good question. I'm going to answer it in this presentation and in all the following Nemesis X, because that's the key here. I'm describing right now the first 60 years, but the last 60 years that Nemesis X is here is the 60 years starting in 2046, counting 60 years to 2106, the 6,000th year, or basically the return of the chief cornerstone. So it's 60 years of perihelion brings and takes away men and materials from the surface world. I'm going to repeat that. The Nemesis X object first appears, and for 60 years, it's at perihelion. For 60 years, it has the ability to bring and take away men and materials from somewhere else. An exchange of materials from between our world and somewhere else. Not necessarily the Nemesis X object itself. What I'm describing here is an object that appears in our sky. And because we've been conditioned to believe in alien drop ships and all this BS Battlestar Galactica crap, we automatically make the assumption that we're talking about some capital ship or mothership, some UFO ancient aliens bullshit. But that's not what the historical record is describing. The historical record is describing an object appearing in the sky and acting more like a conduit between our world and somewhere else, somewhere that our sky actually conceals, because our sky is a hologram and it's hiding something else. I've told you this in many, many presentations. The sky is a lie. 60 years is 21,600 days on the ancient 360-day lunisolar calendar, a number very prominent in Sumerian texts. Yes, Maureen Gallery Kovacs noticed it, Samuel Noah Kramer noticed it, Thor Heyerdahl's noticed it, Zechariah Sitchin even noticed it, but 21,600 shars is found everywhere in Sumerian texts. It's crazy. This pattern will remain true through all recorded history and into the tribulation period, ending in 2106. That's not far from now, guys. So Nibiru is the correct Sumerian designation for Nemesis X, but it is not a planet. And Zechariah Sitchin's interpretation of a 3,600-year periodicity is due to a mistranslation error by Berosus on the shar count system. I don't need to go into those details. Marquaics veterans and even many of you new to my channel know that I have published extensive data sets on the shar equaling a day and not a year, or a 3,600 year period, and how Berosus was wrong and who corrected him. So during this first appearance of Nemesis X in the historical record, the Sumerian and Chinese civilizations appear, both employing the 60-base sexagesimal calendar and arithmetic. Ubaid Neolithic culture suddenly catapulted into sophisticated urban centers of high development. 3439 BC is 396 Anno Mundi. This, you know what Anno Mundi is? This is year one, going all the way back to the Adam and Eve reset of Genesis 3895 BC. 396 Anno Mundi is when the Nemesis X object first appears, and yet 396 is exactly half of the period of the Nemesis X object of 792 years. So this was 453,600 shars, or turnings of the stars, before the deluge in 2239 BC. So 60 years perihelion. During this 60 years of perihelion, in the historical record, the Sumerian and the Sino civilizations began at the exact same time. This is noteworthy because of their earliest pictographs, because of their earliest traditions of the dragon kings and the Anunnaki 7 kings of Sumer. So this is very interesting because the earliest Sumerian and earliest Chinese periods seem to be the same period. If you go to X, you're going to see a lot of people adding context. They're adding their own research and adding their own information to there. Whoa, I don't know what that is. Bad Bunny. We're going to get Bad Bunny off there. I'm sorry, Bad Bunny, but you got to go. Yeah, they slip them in on me. So yeah, people add their own stuff in all these threads. Hey, I learned too, man. My community teaches me too. So let's go back here. Let's go back to number 2, Nemesis X Chronology 2. And Bad Bunny kind of messed me up. Let me gather myself. All right. Nemesis X Chronology, number 2. 3439 BC is the year 456 Anno Mundi. It is also 5544 years before the return of the chief cornerstone, Armageddon War, the 6,000th year since the Adam and Eve reset in 3895 BC. 5544, I believe, is 792 times 9, or 7. 5544 looks familiar to me. Hold on, guys. I can't let that go. 5544 divided by 792. 7. So it's 7 Nemesis X object periods. So this year is the famous 1200 years before the flood. It is 1800 years after the Nemesis cataclysm in 5239 BC that started the Anunnaki nerve system. This is the 600th year since the capture of Luna, the capture flood in the year 4039 BC. These are all 1200, 1800, and 600. They're all divisible, or they are 600 years. This is the nerve system of ancient Sumer, the great year system. Nemesis X object completes its 792-year period, and in the final year, the 792nd year, it causes a cataclysm. The Jasher record reads, where's it at? Oh, I just lost it. Hold on, number 2. I should have opened it from the beginning. The Jasher record reads, and in the days of Enoch, the Lord caused the waters of the Gihon to overwhelm them, and he destroyed and consumed them, and he destroyed a third part of the earth, and there was no food for the sons of men, and the famine was severe in those days. Now, Hebrew tradition holds that there were many earthquakes, drought, and famine in the days of Enoch. And in the Jewish Haggadah text, we find that this flood in Enoch's day occurred before the famous flood of Noah. The Yazidis of Asia preserve traditions of a flooding more ancient than Noah's, stating that the world was flooded twice, the second flood by far the worst. That would be the flood of Noah, 2239 BC. Moses Maimonides wrote that in the days of Enoch, men began to build temples to the host of heaven, venerating the stars as deities, and the old one, the creator, over time was forgotten. This was 456 Anno Mundi, or 3439 BC. This places the event in the days of Jared in Genesis, Enoch's father. Jared is a word that comes from the root to descend. 3439 BC is 792 years times 7, which is 5544 years, to the year 2106, or the year 6000. It is the 600th year since the it is the 600th year since the arrival of the moon in the sky, or 216,000 shars since monitoring of the Igigi began, which is an offshoot race of the Anunna. It is 432,000 shars, or 1,200 years to the Great Flood in 2239 BC. This was also 1,800 years, or 3 Ner, since the 5239 BC Nemesis Cataclysm that began the entire Archaics chronology. For those of you who don't know, Archaics only begins with the historical record. The oldest calendar that we can find that is verifiable with many cross-reference materials is the Anunna Ner system. The Anunna Ner system has not been written about by any authors that I'm aware of since 1895, and he got his information from 1833 from books that I showed you a couple weeks ago in my library. Until that, Archaics is probably the only source of this information, and I have provided a wealth of data showing that the ancient authors all knew of a 600-year period. But that world died, and with the death of that world was the death of that calendrical system. So here's the sources. Let's move on to Nemesis X post number 3. We're moving pretty fast for 2 of them, and I'm going to tell you now, some of these posts are very, very comprehensive. So we're not going to get through them fast like you think. All right, post number 3. Zechariah Sitchin remarks in his The Wars of Gods and Men that Sumerian texts over and over refer to a starting point in the chronicles of the Anunnaki that began 432,000 years before the deluge. Sitchin cites a text excavated from the ruins of Sumer concerning the descent of a god named Inky to earth at the time, which reads, "When I approached earth, there was much flooding." Now, Sitchin's research confirms this 3439 BC date as the descent of the Anunna. In his End of Days book, he relates that the Sumerian writings claim that the Anunnaki appeared on Earth when the Nemesis X object orbited close to our world 432,000 years before the Great Flood. But this 432,000 years is a mistranslation commonly done with ancient Near Eastern text. For these are not 432,000 years, but actually 432,000 days. Precisely 12 centuries of 360 days each. It's a lunisolar system, as seen in my own chronology. Now, the Great Flood date is fixed by the Phoenix date of 2239 BC, which is the year 1656, Annus Mundi, the book of Genesis. It is exactly 1,200 years before this descent of the Anunna in 3439 BC. What is amazing here, the data set that has been provided in the Phoenix research every 138 years is 100% independent of the Nemesis X object's periodicity. And yet, you're going to see here how they absolutely correspond throughout history and give us major events, date monikers, monuments in the timeline by which many other things can be dated forward and backward in time. In Hamlet's Mill by Giorgio de Santillana and Hertha von Deschend, we see that the number 432,000 seems to be where science and myth merge. This number is significant in the mythological systems around the world. All right, that's 3. Let's move on to 4. And we're trucking. Uh-oh, I see Robert Temple. Nemesis X Object Chronology, number 4. In the Holy Tablets, fragments borrowed from Sumerian and Babylonian texts, indicate that the Anunnaki were imprisoned on Nibiru, but were able to escape to Earth after a 60-year period. That's what the calendar shows too. Robert Temple in The Serious Mystery found that the Celts, Greeks, ancient Chinese, and Egyptians all highly regarded a 60-year period in antiquity, learning from an old obscure book from 1827 written by George Higgins titled The Celtic Druids. Temple noted that Stonehenge and other British stone circles encoded a 60-year period. Citing Chinese historian Dr. Herbert Shatley, he notes that the 60-year period venerated in early China found its origin in the era of 2637 BC. While this dating is an approximate attached to a definite 2637 BC, it lies but 10 years after 2647 BC, when the Nemesis X Object was scheduled to reappear. That's amazing. But we'll get to that in a minute. Plutarch wrote that the number 60 is the first of measures for such persons as concern themselves with the heavenly bodies. The early Egyptians represented the 60-year period as a crocodile, a calendar symbol, similar to how the turtle is a calendar symbol in ancient America. Both are reptiles. Remember, the main calendar of the ancient world was Alpha Draconis, the dragon. This vicious reptile is sacred in Egypt as a relic memory of the reptilian amphibious Anunna, who walked among men for a period of 60 years on two separate occasions several centuries apart. Temple's conclusion is startlingly accurate, writing that the link between the crocodile symbol and 60 years probably echoes an earlier association of that cycle with the amphibious aliens. It was this period that identified strangers as the serpent people and dragon-faced, though this does not mean that they were actually reptilian. The Mongols, Manchu, and the Tartars of Asia had cycles of 60 years divided into 5 12-year periods. This calendrical material here, 60 years divided into 12 5-year periods. If you were to render that into geometry, you would have a pentagonal dodecahedron. We're dealing with like the ultimate Platonic geometry. It's amazing. This 60-year period is important because it will remain fixed throughout history, all the way to 2106, the year 6000. Now, Robert Temple makes a really good point. Just because they're regarded as reptilian, fish-like, amphibian, or monstrous does not mean that they weren't human. These associations were given to them because they seem to have come out of the water. There's more on that coming up. We're going to number 5. Once I'm done with number 5, we'll check the chat, see what's going on. Okay, number 5 looks interesting. Number 5. Nemesis X Chronology. Number 5. The architecture of the Great Pyramid demonstrates this date of 3439 BC. Astronomer Royal for Scotland, Charles Piazzi Smith, in the 1870s, during his research on the site at the Great Pyramid, determined for unknown reasons that the descendant passage of the structure, which goes all the way below the pyramid, pointed directly at Alpha Draconis, the Eye of the Dragon, in the year 3440 BC. This is the pre-flood pole star, Thuban, the Eye of the Dragon. This is only 1 year variance from 3439 BC. It's a scientific bullseye. Published in Piazzi's Our Inheritance of the Great Pyramid. This assessment was later reconfirmed by engineer David Davidson in his mammoth book in 1926, The Great Pyramid, Its Divine Message. This links the underground civilization of the Anunna to the Great Pyramid structure. There's the chart from, this is what Charles Piazzi Smith discovered in the 1870s, 1880s. Well, 1870s, but he published it in the 1880s. A shar is a day, not a year. Oh, I know Billy Carson just cringed. Mr. Carson, you shouldn't have blocked all that boy's posts on Facebook like you did back in 2017, 2018, 2019. Let's see. Nemesis X Chronology number 5. I got it marked. Going back here to check my chat. I know my moderators are doing real good. I don't have to check on that. 1,700 in the chat. I hope you guys aren't getting bored. This is a data dump. Listen, you're not going to believe the material we're going to cover in this video. I learn all the time, guys. I don't have all this material memorized. I learn all the time when I'm putting the data sets together because I have to go in all these different files. I got all these things I got to click open now and all these books I got to look into to put this together. Once it's all together, bookmarked like in a file like this, man, it's all clear to me now. It's like, wow. Just like Franz Boas says, I quote him a lot. Record enough facts. Oh no, I mean record enough facts, and the truth is just gonna fall like ripe fruit. Let's see what's going on in this chat. Comment. Let's see. I'm very careful when I draw my charts. Somebody was asking about what kind of pen and ink I use. I use fine point pens, ballpoint pens, but I'm very careful when I draw my charts. All right, let's get into it because we got some ground to cover. We have some aha moments today, and you are going to be a specialist on Anunnaki history after today. Nemesis X Chronology number 6. In the year 1900, an academic work was published titled The Reports of the Magicians and Astrologers of Nineveh and Babylon. The scholars of the 1890s were discussing the identity of Nibiru years before Zecharia Sitchin was even born. Sitchin has embellished much and published a fake Anunna chronology, but the existence of Nibiru is validated in old cuneiform as a mystery object in the sky. Scholars wrote that this object is called Marduk, Umanpadu, Stagamagar, and Nibiru, according to where it is located when it becomes visible. In 1900, in the translations of Thomas Campbell of the old Akkadian and Babylonian texts, the scholars of the day arbitrarily inserted Jupiter in their translations, admitting that Jupiter was known also by other names. But in their explanatory notes, they concede that the actual 3,000-year-old text read Nibiru and Sagamagar. They do not read Jupiter, which was also Nibiru according to the ancient and modern translator. Jupiter has other Sumerian names, and the designation Jupiter was used because the scholars of the day were loath to recognize that the Sumerians were referring to a hitherto unknown body. Are you paying attention? In the 1890s, they had these arguments and they published their research. And in 1900, another man came back and said, listen, this is how these translations are, but these words aren't Jupiter. They're Nibiru and Sagamagar because these guys don't, we're just not really ready to admit that the Sumerians had discovered a planet that we don't know about. Yeah, this is how translations are always done, guys. That's why That's why we have to do a comparative analysis in everything that we find. We have to go deep in air. We have to look for every single source for everything that we want to know about because of this prejudice right here. How many times have books 200 and 300 years after the events they depict been published in just the context of a word, the meaning of a word, syntax, words were changed, words were inverted in a sentence to alter their syntax, which changes their meanings. You can alter the fundament. You can alter the fundament of any message by just changing the grammar. So how many times has this happened? How many times? And these guys got caught. And then Thomas Campbell comes, he's being honest about it and saying, hey guys, this, it doesn't really say Jupiter in these texts. It says Nibiru and it says Sagmagar. And then he publishes material saying Sagmagar is Nibiru. It's just coming in from a different area of the sky. So here's some Akkadian text. When a halo surrounds the moon and Nibiru stands within it, there will be a slaughter of cattle and beasts in the field. When Nibiru grows bright, the king of Akkad will go to preeminence. When Nibiru grows bright, there will be food and rains. When Nibiru culminates, the gods will give peace. Troubles will be cleared up and complications will be unraveled. Rains and foods will come. The amount of crops with regard to the cold will be out of all proportion to the amount of cold on the crops. The lands will dwell securely. Hostile kings will be at peace. This was written by a scribe in Old Akkad named Nergal Itir. Now this is clearly a prophecy. This is clearly a prophecy of a future time of peace and prosperity caused by the appearance of the Nemesis X Object. Nor is this the only reference to the appearance of Nemesis X Object bringing plenty and peace. Nibiru, as the Nemesis X Object, brought prosperity after the Cataclysm in 3439 BC, its first appearance in historical record, and when it returns in 2106, the year 6000 since the Adam and Eve reset, it will bring peace and prosperity after a war referred to as Armageddon. This is the year 6000 when the return of the chief cornerstone happens in 2106, it will be followed by a golden age instantly. This is the same year as the Nemesis X Object. Therefore, according to old Near Eastern prophetic text, Nibiru both brings destructions and it brings prosperity. But it seems that the prosperity is only slated for the end and the beginning because no other time in between did it do that. Here's the book. The reports of the magicians and astrologers of Nineveh and Babylon in the British Museum. All right. Done there. Moving on up. That's 4. Okay, we just covered 6 of them. We're on number 7. Let's see what number 7's about. Those are some critters there. Having trouble scrolling here. Let me just scroll down this way. I got it blown up like that. It doesn't want to scroll. There we go. See if something important came. Okay. I just received word that all the charts, all the hand-drawn illustrations, all the charts you guys ordered was mailed out today. The whole stack gone. That's good. That's good news. Nemesis X Chronology 7. That the appearance of the Nemesis X Object and Anunna in 3439 BC was accompanied by massive flooding is evidenced in the archaeological record. The pre-Sumerian period was the Ubaid, possibly dating as early as 3700 BC. Amidst its history, a major flooding occurred that deposited a thick layer of clean water-laid silt discovered in multiple excavation sites in 1929 through 1934 by Sir Leonard Woolley. Ubaid remains and artifacts were found below and above the flood stratum, exhibiting the continuity of this culture. It is only after this flood deposit that major developments occur. Virtually overnight, the primitive Ubaid culture suddenly underwent a transition into a populous civilization of agriculturalists and builders from small communities of hunter-gatherer fishermen. Anthropologists theorize such rapid changes in primitive culture to advancements are evidence of new contact with higher civilization. Introduced material. Sir Leonard Woolley discovered among the Ubaid artifacts long-skulled statues of a serpent-like people, even serpentine infants, males and females. This tradition of serpent gods was anterior to the arrival of the Anunna, who were originally depicted as tall, bearded Caucasians visiting a world of black-eyed, black-haired, short humans, short with smooth skin. The alien reptoid school is supported by traditional evidence, a few ancient sources, some archaic statuary, but little else. That the ancients believed their gods were reptilian only concerns a very small group. What is consistently ignored is that the earliest Sumerian reliefs, statuary, and seals show the Anunna over and over again as tall, bearded humans. Reptilian statues are evidence of a belief in a reptilian-like deities, not in the actual existence of reptilian people. Tell that to the ancient aliens crowd. They'll have a fit. So what I'm seeing here is I'm on 9 or 8. That's 7. Now let's go to 8. So if I use my touch screen and go down, it's so much easier. Look at that. It's so much easier. And go all the way to 8. Click open 8. Then blow it up. I'm sorry, guys. I'm tech retarded, so I got to talk out loud while I do this. Nemesis X Chronology, number 8. The Chinese maintain that an amphibious being with a man's head and fish tail named Fushi founded their civilization. The traditional Chinese date is 3322 BC. This is close to the truth, being 117 years after the arrival of Fushi in 3439 BC and 1083 years before the Great Flood in 2239 BC. Fushi was the celestial emperor before the founding of the first Chinese dynasty, almost 12 centuries before the Xi dynasty, which was the first, began in 2205 BC, or 34 years after the Great Flood Cataclysm. So you see, Sumerian history, Chinese history, the book of Genesis, biblical history, all line up perfectly. Fushi and his consort, named Noah, repaired the heavens after a flood. This is the Gihon flood, 3439 BC. It is the Nile River in Egypt. As civilization builders, they are often depicted holding a square and compass. Fushi measured the earth and heavens by degrees and invented the calendar. His wife, Noah, was depicted as having a serpent's body. Fushi is sometimes confused with Yu, the survivor of the Great Flood, much later. As Fushi, he was said to have come down from on high, and his primary concern was to measure the dimensions of the world from east to west and north to south. It didn't say he came from space. He came down from somewhere after a flood. Fushi is the Oannes of Babylonia, the Inky of Sumerian tradition, and the Enoch of the Judaic tradition. The founder of civilization, Enoch was the emperor over 130 kings and princes, according to the book of Jasher, but he was known to the Copts as Surid, King Surid, builder of the Great Pyramid, who reigned over 130 of the nomes of Egypt. The serpent bodies of Fushi and his wife, Noah, represent the same as Oannes and sea crops. Outsiders always represented as the serpent race or dragon-faced. Does not mean they were reptilian. That's the Chinese. Look, square and compass. Fushi and Noah. The serpent. The serpent embodied. Similar to what you would call in India, Naga. Does not mean they're serpent. They're actually serpent people. This is a cultural description. All right, we're going to 9. We're going to 9. Moving right along. I sure hope to keep this under 3 hours. Blow this up. Nemesis X Chronology number 9. After the flood of Gihon, 3439 BC, by the Nemesis X Object, Homo Anunna appeared. The underlying message of Sumerian fragments concerning the Anunna was of their association with other planetary bodies, the sun and moon. But evidence of an extraterrestrial origin is totally lacking. Homo Anunna could have been on or under the earth all along, somewhere unknown, appearing from the sea in ships because their homelands were destroyed. The Archaics research has identified the previous Anunna civilization destroyed pre-3439 BC as located in the Americas. The later Babylonian deities called the Anunnaki were memories of pre-cataclysm Homo Anunna, and the traditions from an origin from the stars were not of Homo Anunna, but belonged to Homo Anunna as their own beliefs of extraterrestrial parentage. There's a distinction here. It has been well documented over the centuries that in thousands of years of recorded invasions, migrations, and takeovers, the beliefs of the conquerors become the beliefs of the conquered. There are no Sumerian records of any flying machines, spacecraft, space flight, no floating buildings, nor any other relics of Technolithic architecture as found at Giza, Pumapunka, and a few other sites. Sumer and Babylonia were river valley cultures with no mountains, no mining, no metallurgical districts, and the earliest Sumerian records are more advanced than those that followed and are of a mariner race. That there exist two different versions of the appearance of the Anunnaki is because one is true and the other is fictive. The appearance of Inky and others was by ship from the deep, the sea. Later, as the Anunnaki were regarded as deities, the priests of the Near East leveraged this and told the people they had come from the heavens where gods dwell. The civil authorities copied the practice of the priests and published stelae that proclaimed that temples, cities, and kingship and the law codes were bestowed upon rulers by the Anunnaki themselves, just like it says that specifically on the Code of Hammurabi, on the Law Code of Hammurabi. Yeah, the very first sentence of the Law Code of Hammurabi is a recognition that these laws were passed down by the Anunnaki. Yeah, they leveraged that. The scenario changing history to the mysteries is best understood by associating ancient Babylon as the Vatican of the old world. Oh, we're going to get deep. We're going to get deep. Wait, number 10. Come on now. Got to number 10 fast. I might make it under 3 hours. Look at that. Strabo, 25 BC. The ancients made longer journeys both by land and sea than men of later times. Yes, they did. Thank you, Strabo. Nemesis X Chronology number 10. Man, open up. Thor Heyerdahl understood the origin of the Sumerian civilization and remarked, "The real puzzle was that human history has no beginning. As it stands, it begins with civilized mariners coming in by sea. This is no real beginning. This is the continuation of something lost somewhere in the mist." So, in the Sumerian text, Ea pilots a ship to the shore, Earth, containing 50 Anunna heroes. Ea is the origin of a later Babylonian figure named Oannes. Ea means he whose home is water. This is only a title for an ancient mariner. Ea's official title among the Anunna became Inky, Lord of the Earth. His origin was from the sea, but he landed his ships and ruled over the land. He was firstborn of Anu, meaning his Anunna pedigree was of the ruling class. He was from far away and later remembered as the extraordinary person of Enoch. But that was centuries later. Enki is regarded as a benefactor because he ruled against using forbidden weapons against humans. And it was Enki who disobeyed the other Anunna and warned mankind that the great flood was coming. That's right, guys. Inky has those two things. He may have been a bad guy. Inky appears to be, in all respects, just like the Norse god Loki. A trickster. He's out for himself. He's very powerful. He comes from noble god divine blood. But in the end, he's got a soft spot for the downtrodden. When it comes to defenseless humans, yeah, he sides with the humans instead of his own divine brethren. This is what Loki did, the trickster. This is what Inky did as well. Ignatius Donnelly, a century ago, wrote concerning the traditions of Oannes. This is clearly the tradition preserved by a barbarous people of the great ships of a civilized nation, who colonized their coast and introduced the arts and sciences among them. This is the whole story of the Book of Enoch. The whole story of the Book of Enoch. A technologically advanced race comes in among the Neolithic people, and it's the descendants of the Neolithic people who wrote the Book of Enoch. It's from their perspective. Oannes was also the father of metallurgy. A very unusual fact, since no metals of any kind have ever existed in Mesopotamia. Ea Enki arrived strictly to mine metals, which is more proof that the Sumerians were relating a history that was borrowed from the Anunna from an earlier period. There are no metals in the Tigris-Euphrates valleys. Enki did not land in Sumer. He landed elsewhere, but it was in Sumer that the history was later recorded. Oh man, I'm hearing those ahas. Oh my God, I'm hearing them. Let's collapse that. Makes it easier to go down. 8, 9, that was okay. So we're now at 11. 11 is the number of the Anunnaki. Bet y'all didn't know that. Bet you guys didn't know that. It's in the Babylonian Enuma Elish. The official number of the Anunnaki is 11. All right. In the occult, 11 is the number of discord and disorder. All right, back to it's making me go back all the way every time I click into it. I don't want to read it from the side. I got to blow that up. All right, 11. I'm here. Oh my God, it did not make me do that again. I know you didn't. What is going on? There we go. So, Nemesis X Chronology, number 11. We've got 15 to go. 16 to go. Apollodorus studied the now lost records of Berosus. He criticized Abydos, a later 4th century BC, for not mentioning the other amphibious beings who arrived with Oannes. collectively called the Anunnaki, semi-demons, described as repulsive abominations. Robert Temple wrote, "If ever anything argued the authenticity of their account, it was this Babylonian tradition that the amphibians to whom they owed everything were disgusting, horrible, and loathsome to look upon." I'm going to tell you that this is the exact same thing that's described of smooth-skinned people, Neolithic people, when they see like bearded barbarians, hairy barbarians. To them, it's monstrous. To them, it's terrible. It's demonic. You can read a lot about that in travelogues from the 1700s and 1800s. So, but these associations to half man, half fish deities were accretions added after millennia. In fact, Berosus wrote Babylonica about 3,000 years after 3439 BC appearance of the Anunna. He could hardly be an authority. The fish aspect merely conveyed anciently that these humans were from the sea. This is further evidenced by the fact that another of the Anunnaki was named Otakon, later to be known throughout the post-Diluvian Near East as the Canaanite Philistine fish-man deity Dagon, half fish, half man. The Greeks remembered the Anunnaki as Anunnaki, who were believed to have appeared at 4 different times long ago interacting with men. The mischaracterizations about the Anunna appearing as hybrid fishmen and reptilian is equally found in the descriptions of the state of primitive post-cataclysm humans when the Anunna appeared. Berosus wrote that when Oannes appeared, humans were like the beasts of the field. They're primitive. Oannes was the first of the Apkallu, the 7 demigods of ancient Sumer, the 7 titans, the 7 gods, the 7 giants, the 7 Anunnaki, the 7 masters, the 7 sages, the 7 builders. These are all referenced in Sumerian texts. They served as counselors and priests to the kings of Sumer before the flood, and were known to have emerged from the sea. Yeah, man, these guys are just humans. These are humans from the sea. That's why they're depicted that way. Now I'm on 12. All right. We're almost halfway there. What we got here? Okay, Nemesis X Chronology 12. And then check my chat again. Look at that. The Sumerian Anunna, who appeared in 3439 BC, 432,000 shars, or 1,200 years before the flood in 2239, watchers in the book of Enoch. Enoch is merely a later of Inky. Sumerian depictions of the Anunna are of round-eyed bearded men, most often depicted by white alabaster statues with blue eyes using lapis lazuli. We are told that Inky's group was the 4th arrival of Anunna in history, and that he brought 50 Anunna. In the book of Enoch, it is 200 watchers that appeared and shared their knowledges, sciences, and occult learning with men. 4 visits of 50 Anunna is 200. The Enoch texts read that their leader, Azazel, was guilty of disclosing to the world all the secret things which are done in the heavens. This man was giving up the construct. The Anunna Watchers bound themselves with a mutual curse, accepting that they were adding more judgments upon themselves when they planned to teach mankind all the forbidden knowledge and sciences. When they appear among men, they are rejected by the Sethite survivors, but are taken in by the Cainites, who give them their daughters in exchange for their aid and knowledge. The Watchers taught mankind metallurgy, weaponsmithing, tool making, agriculture, husbandry, herbalism, astronomy, sorcery, jewelry, and feminine cosmetics, stellar and lunar astronomy and astrology, incantations, power over evil spirits, ghosts of pre-Adamic people, or jinn. And the Watchers taught how to brew spermicides. The theme of the Book of Enoch is the same as the Sumerian cuneiform text on Inky, the same as the Egyptian traditions of Shemsu Hor, or the Shining Ones, and the same as the Mayan Popol Vuh, or the appearance of a new race born from the unions between the Watchers, Anunna, and the local indigenous humans, the daughters of men. In fact, this new race, born during the pre-flood world, is the subject matter of this passage in Genesis 6, 1 through 4. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God, Watchers Anunna, saw the daughters of men, local indigenous people, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. You think you know where I'm going with this, you do not. There is a totally different way of translating this passage outside of the Judeo-Christian context, which has given us a whole false version of reality. The indigenous people were of small stature, but the Watchers were very tall and bearded. The children of the local females gave birth to a new race that grew to be much larger, taller, and smarter than the indigenous males. We're going to break that verse down here in a couple posts, and it's going to blow your mind to see it from a totally different vantage point. There's some pretty interesting. Let's see if we can click on these. Yeah, this is a Sumerian depiction of Anunna. Look at the eyes. When Asiatic peoples represent Caucasians, they always round their eyes out. Later, centuries later, people seeing those statues and realized that those are Teraphim, which are idols, gods. They saw those eyes. Of course, when they wrote their text, they would call them Watchers. Why wouldn't you call them a Watcher? Look at the eyes. It's like an owl. This Caucasians are equally guilty. When in ancient Caucasian art and even modern day comics, when white people are trying to artistically depict Orientals, what do? They slant their eyes. They don't have slanted eyes. They actually have beautiful almond-shaped eyes because of something genetically altered cosmetically, which is called the epicanthic fold. It gives the Oriental that beautiful almond eye. But to Caucasians, we overrepresent, we over-accentuate in our art. So we give them slants for eyes, just like they give us saucers. It's no different. Come on, get over here. All right, just showing some of these pictures. I gotta get this back down before I lose it. All right, let's go to post number 13. I think we're at the halfway point. We're gonna go deeper in Genesis chapter 6. 13. Moving on up, moving on up. There it is. There's number 13. Some of these posts, I'm gonna warn you, they're long. We've been hitting some short ones. I finally got a piece of the pie. I did forget to check my chat, didn't I? So we're going to, Nemesis X Chronology 13 is next. Drink me some water and check my chat. Oh, we almost got 2,000 people in the chat. It's like the old days. Somebody told me to just scroll down rather than clicking back. I'll try that. I will certainly try that. Chat looks good. Thank you, moderators. Let's get to it. Let's get to it, man. Nemesis X Chronology 13. So, 3439 BC, Nemesis X Object appears and begins a 60-year perihelion period. Excuse me. 3499 BC, the 60 years begins and starts a 3439, a 60-year period to 3439, when 1/3 of the world's population dies. Now, during the 60 years, what do we learn from the historical record? We learned that men began to multiply. And when they were multiply, they started venerating the stars of heaven, stars of the sky, and building temples to the stars of heaven and ignoring the God of heaven. So at the end of that 60-year period, this destruction came, the Nemesis X Object, bringing a whole new race, the Anunna, which began a 732-year aphelion period where Nemesis X was not here. It was not here during the pre-flood world for 732 years after the appearance of the Anunna. It reappeared in the year 2707 BC, which was the 792nd year of its period. 60 years plus 732 years. Perihelion plus aphelion is 792 years. So let's see what happened in the next time Nemesis X appeared, still during antediluvian history. It's 2707 BC. This is 1332 years since the capture of Luna and the appearance of the Agigi in 4039 BC, or 666 plus 666 years since the arrival of the moon. This year is also the 666th year of the ancient Olmec calendar that began in 3373 BC. I didn't date these events, guys. You've already seen. Archaics veterans, you already know. In other ways, the moon's appearance was dated elsewhere. It's dated in the Anunnaki Nur, not the Nemesis X chronology. Scholars are the ones that dated the Olmec calendar, and yet we have this commiseration here. Look at this, 666, 666, and 666. These are cross-calendrical parallels, and they always provide us more information about what is being studied. So 2707 BC, the return of the Nemesis X Object to begin another period. It is the 396th year of the Vedic calendar that started in 3103 BC. I didn't make that up. Hindu scholars gave us that date of 3103 BC. I've showed it to you in multitudes of books. And yet, it's 396 years into that calendar. Why is that important? Because 396 plus 396 is 792, the full period of the Nemesis X Object. I've shown you guys in previous presentations that the Vedic calendar has the key. It has both. It is connected to both the Phoenix phenomenon of 138-year periods and the Nemesis X periodicity of 792 years. The bridge between these systems is the Vedic calendar, and the Vedic calendar is the one that encodes Exodus from the construct. So this is also the 22nd year of King Enmeluana of Sumer, one of the 7 kings of the Anunnaki. So 7 kings famous before the flood. Or from the Chinese version, he's one of the dragon kings. As the Anunna's origin was the ancient pre-flood Americas, this connection to the Olmec calendar is not surprising, but it is further associated to the Maya Temple of the Cross calendar that began in 3121 BC, or precisely 414 years earlier. This is a cursed Earth period under the Phoenix timeline. So, the return of Nemesis X in 2707 here is also calendrically connected to the Mayan Temple of the Cross calendar. Can't make this shit up. Lastly, this year of 2707 BC, appearance of the Nemesis X object was exactly 132 years, or 792 plus 792 months. Interestingly, 132 years is also 66 plus 66 years. This is after the oppression began when Noah was born in the year 2839 BC, the first year of the Nephilim oppression, end of the Technolithic period. Nemesis X would remain at perihelion for 60 years until 2647 BC. During this 60 years began the ancient Chinese civilization of the Dragon Kings, 2699 BC, and exodus of the Anunna initiating the shock and abandonment period, which is the post-Technolithic period. Civilization in the Americas is fractured by a Phoenix event in 2653 BC, and a vapor canopy forms for the duration of the post-Technolithic period until the Great Flood in 2239 BC. It is most significant that the Great Pyramid Complex at Giza is finished in 2815 BC, exactly 108 years before the return and influence of Nemesis X. This means that the Great Pyramid Complex was built without influence of the Nemesis X object. It says go down. I could have just went down. No, if I just go down, that's not what you were talking about. Because if I just go down, it just goes to chat feed. Trying to miss the chat feed. All right. I went right to the next one. Hell yeah, right there. We're a little bit more than halfway there as far as posts. I don't know about the length of the post. Nemesis X Chronology 14. 2647 BC is 60th year of Nemesis X Object's perihelion period, and exactly 792 years from appearance of Inky and the Anunna when Nemesis X was in its 60th year perihelion on its last cycle in 3439 BC. Nephilim king Enmeluana is still ruling, now in his 82nd year, making 60 of his years as king under direct influence of Nemesis X. This is 408 years before the Great Flood in 2239 BC, or 2448 plus 2448 months, a number signifying both destruction and exodus, as shown in Chronicon. This date marks a mass exodus of benign Anunna, beginning the shock and abandonment period, when cultures began making gigantic agroglyphs and sky-facing monuments and pictures to coax the gods to return. The surface dwellers were psyoped to believe the Anunna departed to the skies, when in truth they descended to underworld facilities like the 60 subterranean cities of Derinkuyu and others below Turkey today. The evidence, as will be shown, is convincing that this visitation of Nemesis X also deposited another group of Anunna who were not viewed with favor by the people. Homo Anunna departed, leaving behind Caucasian Homo sapiens specialists who preserved the knowledge of sophisticated technolithic quarrying, transportation, and dressing of stone, but not their precision techniques. This is why the Technolithic gave way to the post-Technolithic period. Humans continued to use Anunna hardware that had been left behind. Perhaps the left behind materials were not a threat due to the known cataclysm soon to visit the world in 2239 BC. As I'll show in another post, the Anunna knew the Great Flood was coming. With Nemesis X now entering Aphelion, where it will no longer influence the world for 732 years, human civilization exploded with creativity and city building. We should be going to 15 now. Nemesis X Chronology 15. Recall that the Greek version of the Anunnaki before the flood appeared 4 times. In the Ner chronology of 600-year periods, this was every 216,000 stars, or 600 years. This is the origin of the 4 ages, or yugas, of ancient India. The same was told of archaic Mexico. Mexican manuscript Codex Vaticanus, from the library where it's kept, relates the 4 ages of the world preceding our own. Now, the historian Kingsborough wrote that the first age was of giants who were destroyed by famine. The second age ended in a fire that burned the world. The third age was of monkeys. The fourth age is called the Son of Water, a great flood, and the length of time is designated as 4,008 years. This 4,008 years is inflated, either arbitrarily or by mistranslation, from 408 years, from 2647, the return of Nemesis X, to 2239 BC, the Typhon flood of Phoenix. The water sun is a reference to the vapor canopy that existed during the 4th age before the flood. This 408 years to the deluge in 2239 BC began in 2647 BC and was one of prosperity, peace, international, transcontinental commerce, and trade. It is evident from archaeological findings that humans of all races multiplied into the many millions during this period, that some Nephilim giant races also thrived. Cities were erected all over the world. There is a dearth of evidence showing that battles or wars were even fought during this period. Now, I'm not talking about the 60 to 70 years right before the Great Flood. I'm talking about for the majority of the 408 years. The Great Flood ended the 4 ages of the PreFlood World in 2239 BC and began the Age of the Phoenix of 552-year cycles. Archaic's veterans know what I'm talking about. Post 16. Nemesis X Chronology, number 16. The Nasca lines of South America are of unknown provenance, antedating the jungle where they are found to pass under, stretching for hundreds of miles in straight lines from Nasca to even Tiwanaku. An earlier civilization carved them out of the earth, and then another later culture came, maybe the Nasca, and excavated them again around 100 BC. Because the Nasca lines are a vast geometrical designs, artistic animal agroglyphs only seen from the air, they were most likely manufactured by humans who felt abandoned by the gods and attempted to induce their return. This idea is supported by the fact that Nazca lines are discovered extending all the way to Tiwanaku, where the famous Gate of the Sun shows a human leader crying tears while offering up the symbols of kingship to 48 gods who are depicted with wings. It means they ascended. And he's crying because he's not among them or he wants them to return. This is like the story of Votan, the story of Quetzalcoatl, the story of Veruna, the story of Viracocha, Boquica. The scientific assessment is that Tiwanaku, the first layer of occupation, dates to as early as 2650 BC. That's a bullseye for the departure of the Nemesis X object. Disappearance of benefactor Anunna caused the shock and abandonment period. I'm sure this ain't important. It is the archaic's position that the psyop of today of government attempting to draw attention to the sky and stars was the same tactic used in ancient times when the Anunna departed to underground facilities. These are the monuments on Earth that cannot hardly be seen at all from the ground. They were meant to be viewed from the sky. These were attempts of surface dwellers to induce the gods to come back. But the gods were never in the sky. We have found those underground facilities. Those underground facilities in Turkey are absolutely attached to a tradition that even identifies the Anunnaki and the people of the pre-flood world descending into those cities before the cataclysm. We were talking about a technologically advanced pre-flood race that did not tell the other Neolithic living cultures what was going to happen. Except for Inky, he did. He gave up the game. Man, this is a whole lot of information for just 2 visitations of Nemesis X before the flood. Yeah, we're not even done. Not even done. Not even close. Nemesis X Chronology, post 17. Before the flood, there were 2 appearances of Nemesis X, and these were 792 years apart. Genesis 6 actually contains the key to understanding that there were 2 appearances of Anunna. This is Genesis 6. I read it to you earlier. Now I'm going to show you a different way of looking at it. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Rob Skiba, bless his soul, he's passed on, in his book Archon Invasion holds that the words after that in Genesis 6:4 is a reference to something that occurred shortly after the events of Genesis 6:1 through 3, and entirely in a pre-flood context. Rob Skiba knew nothing of the Nemesis X object periods, but his observation proves correct. Genesis 6 is referring to 2 appearances of the Anunna before the flood. In 3439 BC, the famous 432,000 shars before the flood, or 1200 years, when the gods appeared, was 792 years before 2647 BC, when Nemesis X made another appearance. The background to the first verse is clear. They, the sons of God, the Anunna, the Watchers, appeared, quote, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth. That's 3439 BC, and when the temples were being built prior to that. The second union between the Anunna and the daughters of men is in a different historical context, a totally different setting. It was when, quote, There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. This was 2647 BC, the second appearance of Nemesis X. Come on, scroll. The assumption has been that the sons of God and daughters of men unions produce the giants, but this is not what the passage conveys, nor the traditional records. Giants are used as a chrono marker for the events, and the children of the Anunna, daughters of men, became a new race, regarded as heroes, a new breed of mighty humans, giant slayers. As shown in Archaics, giantism in humans was never caused by sexual relations with gods, but entirely from demonstrable environmental factors. The Titans, even in the Greek concepts, in the Phoenician of Sanchoniathon, in the Greek traditions, giants never came from a union of angels and normal humans. No, they came from Titan blood. That's right. So we know giants are created by environmental factors. Genesis 6:4 is providing historical context. Yes, the sons of God, the Anunna, took the daughters of men. Yes, they had offspring twice, but it was just to birth a new human race, not a giant race. The vapor canopy was why, in the second time, there were giants in the earth in those days. Remember, I told you guys in the past, the pre-flood world did not have one. It had two vapor canopy periods. And the second canopy collapsed in 2239 BC, the day the sky fell, the great flood of Noah. Whoa, okay, here's where my posts start jumping. So if that was post 17, well, here's a chart for post 17 right there. We're talking about the far left, 3439 and 2647. These are both before the flood. The next one is 1915 BC. That's not before the flood. It's after. It's after. We'll be getting back to this chart soon. Look at the very end though. 2046 and 2106 are the next two. The next two Nemesis X periods. All right, so we're going to exit that. If that was 17, then I need to go find 18, and 18 is going to be here. Oh, let's see what the Book of Jubilees has to say. What's that Jubilees say? 17, here's 18. Nemesis X Object 18. In the Book of Jubilees, chapter 5, 1 through 10, we discovered that the Watchers appeared and took the daughters of men and gave mankind knowledge and technology, specifically in the 10th Jubilee period during the days of Jared. This is precisely 450 to 500 Anno Mundi, or years of pre-flood history. 3439 BC appearance of Nemesis X and Inky with his Anunna was 456 Anno Mundi, or 3439 BC, a perfect sync with the Jubilees text. During the second week of the 10th Jubilee, which is the year 449 through 455 Anno Mundi, or 3440 BC, Mahalalel married Dinah, the daughter of Barachiel, the daughter of his father's brother. She gave birth to a son for him in the third week, in the 6th year, 461 Anno Mundi. He named him Jared, because during his lifetime, the angels of the Lord, who were called Watchers, descended to earth to teach mankind and to do what is just and upright upon the earth. The first appearance of the Watchers was as benefactors. The second appearance of the Anunna, or Noah, coincides with the early life of Noah, who in the Dead Sea text is described as the beginning of a new race, fathered by the sons of God. This is in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Genesis Apocryphon, or the Apocalypse of Abram 1:0. In Jubilees, it states that Noah himself began to have sons in the 25th Jubilee, or 1250 AM, Anno Mundi. This is amazingly close to 1248 AM, or the second appearance of the Nemesis X Object in 2647 BC, and reappearance of the Watchers. It is within the 60-year perihelion period of Nemesis X. The first appearance of the Anunna were as civilization bringers after a terrible calamity in 3439 BC that killed 1/3 of the world's population. The second appearance of the Anunna were as bringers of a new race before their own rapid disappearance. This is the value of studying chronological systems, guys. You can put all this together. Just pay attention to the details, and it all lines up perfectly. That's 18. Let's go to 19. I'm telling you guys, chronology should be a college course. I don't know why they don't teach it. Sorry, bastards. All right, I need to find 19. That's 16, 17. Okay, it's now for some reason it's skipping every other one. That's fine. I'll find it. There it is, 19. Now let's open it. Oh, it's got me going through these changes, doesn't it? 19. All right. Oh, I put chronology X chronology. Nemesis X chronology 19. The Great Pyramid Complex of Giza. Maybe I need to blow that up for y'all. The Great Pyramid Complex of Giza was built from 2905 to 2815 BC, as shown in many different ways in my Chronicon. The builders were not under the influence of Nemesis X, as it was at Aphelion. But with the appearance of this new race represented by Noah, as soon as Nemesis X disappeared again into Aphelion in 2647 BC, a massive campaign of pyramid building began in the Americas, China, ziggurat structures in the Near East, and pyramids in Egypt. Most pyramids in Egypt are within 50 miles of Cairo and the Giza complex. Abu Rosh, Saqqara, Dashur, Meetup, and they date to circa 2685 through 2188 BC officially. This places the frantic pyramid building period after the Great Pyramids were already finished by 200 years or more. The second dynasty of Egypt, Pharaoh Zoser, builder of the step pyramid at Saqqara, is dated to 2650 BC. That's a bullseye. This is a bullseye to 2647 BC. It is recorded by archaeologists as a time of massive building projects all over the world. And in Egypt, a new race did appear after the reign of the gods, Anunna. They are referred to in the Turin Papyrus as Shimsu Hor. Now, Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval did a good job reviewing the Shimsu Hor data while simultaneously butchering every chronological truth. They wrote, the earliest surviving references to the followers of Horus occur in the pyramid texts. Egyptologists conceded that these texts are merely transcripts of even older writings no longer extant. The scribes that copied them often did not understand the words they were copying. Wallace E. Budge wrote, the pyramid texts are full of difficulties of every kind. The exact meanings of a large number of words found in them are unknown. The construction of the sentence often baffles all attempts to translate it. Contains wholly unknown words. A mystery. Ancient Egypt's records are descended from a more advanced literature that preceded it. Now, Hancock and Bauval wrote, these followers of Horus bear with them a knowledge of divine origin. This was taken from a message of the Sphinx. Give credit where it's due. Got to give credit where it's due. But we're not done with Shimsu Hor. Go to post 20. It's 18. That's 19. This is 20. All right. Nemesis X Chronology, post 20. Shimsu Hor were regarded as the direct descendants of the gods, or Neteru. The descriptions given to them are from the perspective of indigenous Egyptians. Hancock nor Bavel, perhaps not wanting to address the obvious racial references, did they mention that in the Turin Papyrus, the followers of Horus were by the darker native Egyptians called ghosts. I don't know why that's a really butchered sentence. Hancock nor Bavel, perhaps not wanting to address the obvious racial references, did mention that in the Turin Papyrus, the followers of Horus were by the darker native Egyptians called ghosts. And this is significant. Ghosts are luminous, they're white. And the same description of ghosts was given to Captain Cook and his English sailors when he made first contact with the dark Aborigines of Australia. Cook marveled that the Aborigines in fear averted their eyes and learned later that it was because the natives thought that when they landed in their ships that they were ghosts. They had never seen white-skinned people before, and Cook's party were thought to have been the dead walking among them, so they maintained a respectful silence and waited for them to leave. That the Shimsu Hor were racial outsiders with bright skin unlike the darker natives of the Nile Valley is proven in the title given to the followers of Horus, called Aku, meaning the shining ones. A racial description of a Caucasian people by a dark-skinned race. Throughout the annals and traditions of antiquity, we find this over and over. I talk about cargo cult phenomena all the time. That non-Caucasian peoples perfectly described white-skinned visitors with a superior technology and knowledge of the sciences that have been misinterpreted over and over in modern times as the appearance of gods or aliens on ancient reliefs. This one fact collapses the entire Ancient Aliens franchise. It's all fantasy. It's all adult fantasy, Facebook educated BS. The entire Ancient Aliens franchise is a lie, every bit of it. Unlike Hancock and Bavel, Professor Waddell, Thor Heyerdahl, and others did not fear to explain that the first dynasties of Egypt and Sumer were of outsider Caucasians that entered the regions. They weren't indigenous. Shimsu Hor, or the followers of Horus, according to Hancock and Bavel, followed after the reign of the gods in Egyptian prehistory. The Egyptians' own accounts also invite the conclusion that the role of the followers may have been to carry down the ages a body of extraordinary knowledge harking back to the even more mysterious time of the Neteru, of the gods, the Anunna. Also, from available primary sources, in other words, the overall picture that emerges is that the followers of Horus, Shimsu Hor, may not have been kings in the usual sense of the word, but rather immensely powerful and enlightened individuals at the sacred site of Heliopolis, Giza, the Great Pyramid. This race appeared about 2647 BC, but was descended from the Anunna builders that built an immense civilization about 3031 BC. Shimsu Hor would be known by this title after the Great Flood, and as we'll see in the next post, the Egyptian chronology of the Turin Papyrus proves this dating. Message of the Sphinx, Hancock and Bavel. It's a good read. Neither one of those men are chronologists. Everything else can be forgiven. Let's see. I believe that was 20. Let me see here. I believe that was 20. Yeah, we'll go to 21. So 21 is going to be further up here. Okay, I'm going to reverse now. That's good. 21 is going to be the first one that started skipping. There's 22, so this will be 21. All right, easy to find, easy to find. '21. Nemesis X Chronology 21. I have two 21s. I remember now. I misnumbered them. Professor Walter Emery claims that Shemsu-Hor was a master race over other cultures in ancient Egypt. This is an Elder Gods in Antiquity. It's a fantastic book. Shemsu-Hor had the gift of knowledge. Shemsu-Hor in the Turin Papyrus are called the ancestors or sages, ghosts, a semi-divine race who the Egyptians remembered as having bridged the gap between the time of the gods and the time of Menes, the first king of Egypt. Shemsu-Hor reigned 13,420 years. This is my issue with Graham Hancock and others who have copied his perpetuation of an old mistake. Just as Plato's 9,000 years of Atlantis history before Solon was a mistake corrected by many ancient writers and modern academics, so too is the 13,420 years not actually years at all. We're dealing with Egyptian antiquities. I have published an entire data set on the Egyptian years in ancient times being factored as only 30 days. A month in the Western world of the Greeks and Near East was the equivalent of an Egyptian year. This was known over 2,000 years ago and makes Atlantis' war between Athens and its destruction to be in the 13th century BC and not 9,600 BC Ice Age, Younger Dryas fantasy. This isn't my data. I have already proven to my community through data sets that the Egyptians counted 30 days as a year. By the same token, this is an Egyptian dating, so the same applies, making 13,420 Egyptian years to be equal to 1,108 actual solar years before Menes, known as the Sumerian navigator Anum, Mina backwards, who landed his ships on the shores of ancient Egypt. Professor Waddell has conclusively shown that Menes is Anum. Anum was a Sumerian king who became a warrior, like a warrior regent, and he left Sumer. But Anum is the Sumerian way you would spell it. The Indo-Iranian would be reversed, which is going to be Mina. Mina is the same as the later Greek Menes. They're all the same individual. And through Professor Waddell's data and a meticulous amount of data in Chronicon, it is very easy to see that Menes landed in post-Diluvian Egypt after an intermediate period in 1897 BC, just 2 years after the Babel Cataclysm, which is also very misunderstood. This places the origin of Shemsu-Hor with their father's civilization in about 3015 BC. Homo Anunna, who were about to build the Great Pyramid Complex, the exact period of the reign of Enoch as emperor, the same generation as the beginning of the Scorpion King traditions, the start of the Kali Yuga calendar in 3103 to 3102 BC, the Mayan long count of 3113 BC, the Mayan Temple of the Cross calendar in 3121 BC, traditional beginning date of the Egyptian civilization in 3100 BC, the Sumerian Etana tradition of 3100 BC of Etanas vanishing into the sky like Enoch. This places the origin of Shemsu-Hor with their father's civilization in about 3015 BC, which lines up perfectly with what we've already concluded. Homo Anunna, who are about to build the Great Pyramid Complex. The exact, wait a minute, did I replicate that? I sure did. I have the exact same paragraph twice. Huh. Okay. This is the true origin of the Jewish version that Shem was the son of Noah. Right here. This is it. Shem-Su-Hor. The Jewish scribes in Babylonia read all about him, and they just assigned that the son of Noah, Anunna, the descendant of Noah, the descendant of the Anunna, was not Shem-Su-Hor anymore. They condensed it to Shem and then claimed Shem as their patriarch. Oh, they're no good. They're good at what they do. They're good at what they do. So the Turin Papyrus is identifying this period where all these calendars line up, right here, where you see my cursor going up and down, where this arrow is right here. This 21-year period where all these ancient calendars start at the same time is lined up perfectly with the life of Enoch, the chronologist, the prophet, the architect, the messenger of God, Enoch, who ascended into heaven and disappeared like Etana, Enoch, who is nothing but a Semiticized version of the Sumerian Inky, Lord of the Earth. That was one of my 21s. I have another 21. I have a second 21. I accidentally numbered two of them 21. Let's go find it. I saw it a second ago. That's 21. And there's the other 21. I only have 28 posts, so you know we're making good time. Making real good time. Nemesis X Chronology, the fake 21. All right. Will Hart, in his book The Genesis Race on page 104, wrote concerning ancient South America. Grand-scale architectural complexes emerged between 2700 BC and 1800 BC, corresponding to the beginning of ziggurats in Sumer and the Step Pyramid of Saqqara in Egypt. This lines up perfectly with the disappearance of Nemesis X and the sudden explosion of pyramid building and creativity in city planning. Egypt's connection to early Sumer and ancient China parallel this timeline. Some sinologists believe that the Chinese culture originated in Mesopotamia. In the Middle East, the Sumerian language stands alone for its agglutinative, don't get me to lying, for its agglutinative, I don't know, for it is, one of you linguists out there can give us something in the comment section about this, but agglutinative, in this respect belonging to the same group as the Chinese. This is in a book called Flying Serpents and Dragons. Even today, the Chinese syllabary is based on signs fundamentally similar to the old Sumerian pictographs. In structure, Proto-Sumerian resembles Chinese and Turkish, but in vocabulary, it resembles no known languages living or dead. Ancient Chinese text Nai Xing, the Book of Medicine, dates to 2650 BC, containing modern diagnosis and treatment plans. 2650, that's the departure of the Nemesis X object. The reign of the Dragon Kings is exactly in the period from 2647 BC to the Chinese flood about 2200 BC, paralleling the 7 kings of Anunnaki of Sumer. Archaeologists estimate that remember, the reason it's paralleling, don't fall for the Billy Carson version. Don't fall for the Zechariah Sitchin BS. The Sumerian king list says that the 7 kings ruled before the flood and that their dynasty was ended by the great flood. And it says that the 7 kings combined rule was 241,200 shars, When you divide it by the Sumerian sexagesimal lunisolar reckoning of 360 days a year, like the Sumerians did, you get 241,200 divided by 360 to exactly, perfectly to the decimal 00. You get 670 years exactly. 670 years, 7 kings ruled, and then the flood cut them off. According to the Chinese, the dragon kings ruled for 646 years, and the flood cut them off. It's the same dynasty, two different perspectives. Archaeologists estimate that the foundations of the earliest temples in Sumer were laid in early dynastic times, 2700 BC. Sitchin dates the inception of Minoan civilization of Crete to circa 2700 BC. Why is this important? Because there's no evidence of warfare. There is no evidence of any type of degenerative activity in early Minoan culture. None. About 2500 BC, the Beaker people from Holland and the Rhineland move into Britain, introducing metallurgy, dominating culture in southern England. So something happened at that time period for mass migrations to be occurring. A megalithic culture, people that would be powerful by 1800 BC with a flourishing Bronze Age culture. These were the Beaker people. The Harappan civilization of Pakistan and India dates its formative period to 2700 BC. Oh, we're going to get to them. Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China are all aligned at 30 degrees north latitude of the equator. All three being pre-flood civilizations. This is the exact latitude of the Great Pyramid Complex at Giza. Cannot be a coincidence. All three of these cultures were pyramid building as well. Will Hart wrote, whenever we find civilizations with pyramids and the beginnings of irrigation agriculture, we find accounts of gods descending to earth to teach humans how to live a civilized life. He didn't say descend from space. In Archaics, we have already disclosed that the ancient aliens' version of descent of the gods is untrue. The Anunna descended from an owl in mountain strongholds that led to underground infrastructure where they always retreat to survive cataclysms. It's what they're doing today as they give us this circus, this stupid ass American election and all elections. As they give this, as the media keeps painting this scenario of all these things going all around the world, this is what they're doing again, preparing those ancient facilities to be housed again. This is an age-old cycle. The god coming down the mountain, or the god's representative, is the oldest religious image in the world. These are the books I just referenced. This is Will Hart, Genesis Race. It's pretty good. It's got some good stuff in it. Flying Serpents and Dragon was a really good book. R.A. Boulay was a U.S. One time he was a U.S. cryptologist. I told you guys about this guy. He did his own chronology of the world, and he too 100% agrees that the Exodus event in the 10 plagues happened in 1447 BC, which is the absolute, that knowing that date is the key to unlocking all world chronology. Fantastic book, and it's huge. This book is fantastic, guys. It's got so many rabbit holes in it. So many rabbit holes. The Elder Gods of Antiquity. Way better than Zechariah Sitchin. Yeah, man, this dude's great. All right. And the last one, Zechariah Sitchin. I borrowed some of his material in that post when time began. So that was my 221. So let's go find 22 now. 22 should jump off the page. Should be next. There it is right there, 22. Oh, we're going to be talking about Mohenjo-Daro, I believe. It's another key in this puzzle. Oh, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Come on, man. I know I did that right. All I'm doing is clicking. What the hell's wrong with you? There it is. What is going on? Oh, I just went to the wrong one again. What is going on here, man? I just popped all the way out of the feed. 22, there it is. Give me all kinds of drama. Nemesis X Chronology 22. The Indus Valley culture is believed to have begun before 2500 BC. According to the city of Mohenjo-Daro was flooded more than once and rebuilt. Most unusual excavation of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa have revealed the shattered remains of an older culture of equally remarkable character, roughly datable from 3000 BC, Anunna, or slightly before 3439 BC, still Anunna, to about 2500 BC, post-Anunna. This is the race of Noah. This is Thor Heyerdahl, the Tigris expedition. The Indus Valley civilization after the deluge was rebuilt many centuries after a cataclysm that occurred before the flood. Harappan civilization was vast and seems to be the parent culture for the three sister civilizations of the descendants of the Anunna, Egypt, Sumer, and China. Will Hart wrote, Harappan civilization appears to have blossomed abruptly in an extraordinarily sophisticated form sometime around 3000 BC to 2500 BC, complete with sewer systems, orderly streets, and public and private baths. Their racially mixed society, as depicted in their statuary and other artwork, included at least 1,500 separate settlements. This was a huge civilization. Tablets with inscriptions have been found but are undecipherable. Hart notes that there is no evidence of armies, no temples, no palaces, colossal architecture, no displays of wealth. Indus Valley, Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Dolavira, Lothal, which is a port, or what used to be a port, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa seem to have sprung up, all fully planned. The Indus Valley cities were planned with drainage and sewage systems laid out with carefully organized streets. Archaeologist Mohammed Abdal Halim asserts that no cities of ancient Mesopotamia or Egypt exhibit evidence of such sophistication. This is Mysteries of the Ancient World. No Sumerian cities as sophisticated as the Harappan ones. Sumerian records tell of two ancient seafaring nations in the 3rd millennium BC whom they traded with, called the Makan and the Meluha, in the vicinity of India. Guys, the Necronomicon, I've told you, it is fiction mixed with facts. It concerns the gate to the outside, called the Gate of Yaxakak. The gate to the outside was one of the great secrets of the Makan. Remember, the Necronomicon quotes actual Akkadian sources. That's why it's so unusual. We are told it's a work of fiction. However, it has the entire Enuma Elish Babylonian tablet, 7 tablets in it. It quotes them extensively. So the other areas that it quotes as well are probably equally true. Talks about how the ancient ones are in a prison and they seek to get out, and that man is the key by which the gate of Yaxakak can be flung wide. Then the gate is itself a blessing and a curse, because it will allow many to escape while it will allow the ancient ones in. So let's see. These probably being the Indus Valley civilization and the Dravidian culture of India, both having numerous port cities. Now, a mariner race. We are not surprised to find that the Harappan script of the Indus Valley has a corresponding script on the other side of the world. at Easter Island, the Rongo script, which is still undeciphered. Do you understand what's saying here? Mohenjo-Daro, 2700 BC, has seals that have these symbols, and those symbols can only be found in one other place in a script called Rongo. It is on Easter Island where the giant heads are. Also, a ruler or deity is depicted in a famous statue found at Mohenjo-Daro that shows a man wearing a well-groomed short beard. This parent civilization, or Civilization X, was vast, for two principal cities, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, were 500 miles apart. This was Homo Anunna of Inky. 3439 BC to 2647 BC, the 792 years between the Nemesis X visitations. The Technolithic period is what this is called. Technolithic is the Anunna technology, the ability to shape stone, to use rock, stone, and normal resources, and add geopolymers, and add silicates, and add minerals to strengthen and earthquake-proof their structures, to make structures with high planes of tolerance. 2647 BC, the Anunna reappeared locally and began a new race, the race of Noah. This was Shimsu-Hor, who carried the builder's knowledges into the world after the Great Flood, into China, Egypt, Sumer, and the Americas. Oh man, we're moving on up. Where am I at? Check my chat before we go. Yeah, I've heard about Mammoth Cave, Kentucky. They got most of that sealed off now. 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm going to make it under 3 hours. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. All right. Let's get back to my bookmarks. All right. So I should be at 22 or 23. We'll see in a second. (22 or 23). There's 24, 23. Okay, I'm at 23. I think we got 5 left, 4 or 5 left. This is the other green Sitchin book. It's pretty close here. Golly, what nerve-wracking. Nemesis X Chronology 23. Zechariah Sitchin acknowledges a mystery he cannot explain. Gold was mined extensively in antiquity for the Anunna, but his reason for the atmosphere of Nibiru is pure invention. However, the archaeological evidence shows that at about 2500 BC, gold came into royal use, indicating a change of attitudes whose reasons are yet to be explored. But the reason is clear. In 2647 BC, the Anunna departed. Nemesis X Object appeared in the final year of the 60-year perihelion, and there was an exchange of men and materials with somewhere else. With Homo Anunna gone, their offspring were left in charge. A new race, Shimsu-Hor, continued to mine gold and had no one to give it to. So gold became used in crowns, ornaments, sacred objects, cosmetics, jewelry, and ultimately over the centuries as a currency by a mariner race. Sitchin again makes a metallurgical connection relating to departure of the Anunna, and again he does not recognize the value of his own observation. In the Lost Realms, he notes that the Bronze Age of the Near East was in full swing from about 3500 to 2600 BC. 3439 BC to 2647 BC being 792 years of the Technolithic period. This is Anunna occupation, when supplies of tin dwindled and almost petered out. With the Anunna gone, tin mining in that entire hemisphere ceased, if it continued at all. It would be about 500 years before tin would be available again to make bronze. Shortly after the Great Flood in 2239 BC, a Caucasian people moved into the Near East, establishing Bronze Age civilization, or the Heliolithic Maritime Empire that endured until the Ogygian Deluge in 1687 BC. Do you see how all this fits so perfectly together? Nemesis X timeline and appearances fit lockstep with what we know about the 138-year periodicity of the Phoenix phenomenon. It's amazing. This is Zechariah Sitchin in the Lost Realms. That was probably my favorite of all the books. '24. We're on 24 or 25. We're on 24. Oh, man, come on. Why are you giving me all this drama? Nemesis X Chronology 24. 1915 BC. The Nemesis X Object has been gone at Aphelion for 732 years and now returns. Wait a minute. Hold on. I did not know. Cogent calendar. Hold on. I didn't know I went that far. I may have gone too far, because that is supposed to be a part of my post-flood analysis. Yeah, I wasn't going to go after the flood today at all. That was supposed to be in the next data set, not in this one. Yeah, that's right. Jason blunders too. Is there a reason why this is here? Go look at 24, that's 25. Well, I'll be damned. We finished the pre-flood world. Yes, we did. Yeah, these belong in the next data set. So, in summary, I'm going to give you a real quick summary of all that material real fast. Whew, man. All right. So, without looking at the hundreds of other things that we have recorded in the pre-flood world as found in my Chronicon. Here's Chronicon. So one of my moderators can post the link. This is my copy of Chronicon, but you can get it as a PDF for 1,055 pages. You can go to Podia and get it. I now threw in 400 chronological charts, so to help you get through this is the history of the world. And it's still not complete, but that's a real good version. And because that's too big to manage, I have my own I designed myself, which I may publish because this would help you too. This is what I call Chronicon Companion. I did this myself because Chronicon Companion allows me to do calendrical isometrics forward and backward in time super fast without going through all those pages. Because that right there has been abbreviated to small little captions like this. I just little bitty one-liners. I just need a one-liner about what happened in that year. I don't need a whole bunch of stuff. So this helps me with a calculator go forward and backward in time. I may publish this Chronicon Companion because I know a bunch of you guys like to do what I do. Get that calculator out and go forward and backward in time and find all these patterns. So, but we have a massive amount of pre-flood data in here. and I have a lot more to add. I haven't done it. But just the what we have from the Nemesis X chronology. That's all we went through right now. Then everything attached to the Nemesis X chronology, not all the other pre-flood data, just the Nemesis X chronology already answers for many myths and traditions and chronological anachronisms that have crept into the publishing world. We have already answered for all these things. We now understand that gods weren't thousands, tens of thousands of years ago. Everything's been reduced to a human perspective, to something that's very easily verifiable with a calculator. When you calculate time periods by the calendars and the cultures that applied certain techniques, when you use their techniques, it all fits in. Everything fits so perfectly. And what's crazy is this 792-year patterning is going to continue all the way to 2046. And I'm going to go through the thread. My next video, we're going to go through a few of them. Instead of just 2, we're probably going to hit 4 or 5 of them. Because the last video is just going to be on 2046 and 2106. That's how much data we have for those 2 dates. So that's it. So that concludes my Nemesis X intro video. This is going to be a trilogy for sure. But this is just 2 visitations, both of them before the flood, and they answer for the weird syntax found in Genesis 6:4 that for the Judeo-Christian interpretation, which we know, do not read the book of Revelations after reading Judeo-Christian commentaries. It's going to lead you wrong every time. It's designed to do that. The same thing applies for the book of Genesis. The Judeo-Christian interpretations of the book of Genesis are going to lead you wrong. Yeah. Angels did not come down here and have sex with human women and give birth to giants. The giants in those days is a chrono marker. It is telling you that this new race was born during a time when giants were here. We already know giants are the product of vapor canopies. We already know that giantism is created by environmental factors. And we know that there isn't a single reference in all the religions of the world of angels having sex with human women to create giants until the Jews were captive in Babylon in the 5th century BC, and they wrote that into their traditions, and it bled into the book of Jubilees, and it bled into the Apocrypha and the pseudepigraphical text, and it bled into the Jonathan Targum and the Talmudic and the Talmudic commentaries, and then the rabbinical text and rabbinical writings. Now, I really like the guy I just had. You guys know he was really good. He was very good at what he knows his biblical material. But I totally disagree with his analysis of the book of Jasher. And I didn't argue with him because I instantly knew why he did not like the book of Jasher, although 4 copies of the book of Jasher have been found in the world, and that it's been confused with its forgeries many times. I have gone, as you guys know, I have gone through the book of Jasher with a calculator, and I have made so many amazing discoveries. There's no way this information is incorrect. It lines up perfectly with all these other calendrical studies. But I know why he didn't like the book of Jasher. And it's because the book of Jasher is this massive authority. The Bible relies on it twice as a source material. It says, is this not written in the book of Jasher? But in the book of Jasher, there isn't a hint of angels having sex with human women at all. The story in the book of Jasher was of 2 different races coming into contact. The daughters of men are mentioned, but they were taken by the chieftains and lords of another race. No giants, no angels. So anyway, yeah, the book of Jasher isn't real popular with those who hold to that theory of angels having sex with human women. And that's right. It's called the Book of the Upright. Asherim, the Book of the Upright. Say, guys. Oh, George hey, George Abdulnor. I'm gonna send y'all an email, either probably tomorrow. I'll send y'all an email. I already know everything that's about. The email y'all sent me, I already know what it's all about. No, it's no biggie. It's no biggie. All right. That's going to be it. 2 hour. I kept it under 2 hours and 30 minutes. Woohoo! You guys got some fantastic videos on the way. I'm telling you. Wait for that Tartaria video. Oh, man, I'm going to have so many haters after that. But it's going to open up some eyes. Because, man, once you see something, you already know. Once you see something, can't unsee it. Just can't unsee it. You're going to be ruined. When you see the Tartaria video, many of you are just going to be ruined. Like, oh, wow. How did we not? How did this happen? How did this get blown out of proportion so bad? And all along, this right here answers it perfectly. Yeah, it's crazy, guys. It's crazy. But I'm just rambling now. I'm just rambling. Let's find me an outro. I'm in a good mood. What kind of outro? What does a good mood outro do? I know what it does.
Wasn't 12,000 years ago? It was in the 1800s or something.
Atlantis 10,000 years ago? Even I'm not that dumb.
Come on, G, you can't contain this. You're going to sink like Atlantis.
Billy Carson is fake news, the fakest news. Jason has proven that.
After careful analysis of Jason's data sets, I agree with you, Billy. Don't debate him.
The cat's out of the bag, Billy. Jason's data set proves you're wrong about Atlantis.
Billy, even I can see that the Atlantis narrative isn't dated correctly. Hear Jason out, man.
Hey, bro, you running from this debate isn't a good look for your research. Just debate him already.
Billy, don't be scared to debate, man. I'll have you guys on the podcast.